Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Uh, Today's been kind of a dreary one where I live. Rain, we had a hailstorm, and just an overall cloudy gray day. So I was thinking as the workday was ending, what we might have for supper. Maybe some meat, I thought. So went online looking for a new recipe and found a New York Times story about the artificial meat they're growing in labs. They call it cultured meat. Yeah, not really appetizing. I may not eat meat again for a few days after reading the story. Maybe this is all a conspiracy just to get me to consume less red meat and lose some weight. Um, we're not here to talk about food, at least not today, so this first page just comes from an online conversation I had probably years ago now with my cousin's husband, Wayne. Really great guy. Is very well read and a connoisseur of popular music. Anyway, he recommended that I sample some Wallace Stegner, since that author sort of marks a gaping hole in my literary pursuits. He advised starting with Angle of Repose, but I'm a contrarian in most things, so I'm beginning today with Mormon country. I just like the stage that Stegner sets of rural Utah so long ago. So here then is the first page or so of Wallace Stegner's Mormon country. Just as the sun slipped down over the Pavant, Sigurd Mountain to her, the girl came out and sat down on the porch steps. It was May. The lilacs, though almost over, filled the air under the great cottonwoods with scent, and the snowballs were out at the corner of the house. As she looked up through the leaves at the high, suspended sunset, she saw the cottonwood balls hanging like clusters of grapes, and beyond them, on the flat profile of the mountain, the pines and pinyons furry with light. It was very quiet in the street, in the whole town. She heard only the rattle of the cottonwood leaves and the grassy guggle of water in the irrigation ditch. She watched the cliffs of Sigurd Mountain, the terraced red ledges with black junipers toe-nailed into their sides, stepping backward to the plateau's rim. And as she watched, she felt the dusk come on, the earth darkening before the sky, as if a smoke came up out of the valley and blotted out the shadowed ledges. Merged black juniper and red rock laid a quieting hand over the mouth of the town. She sat listening because tonight was mutual night, and the M men were throwing a dance for Heber Christiansen's farewell, and Milton was coming down from the herd to go with her. Milton always got out of school a month early, as soon as the lower slopes of the mountain cleared of snow, to help with the shearing and then run the sheep up from the desert to graze them in the forest reserve. She wished she could get off school for something as good as that. All she ever got was a week in the spring, so she could go break her back thinning beets. The only good thing about beet thinning was that everyone did it at the same time, and it was kind of a picnic sometimes, in spite of the cricks it put in you. The coating of red dust on leaves and trunks of cottonwoods was invisible now. A cricket under the stoop chirped. From down the street, down by the ward house, she heard laughter and the calling of a girl's voice. A cornet braid, laughing like a jackass. That would be Henry Dahl. He was always horsing around with his horn, but he could play it. Sometimes he and his Cusharam coyotes got a call to play for dances as far up the valley as Salina or Gunnison. She smoothed her dress over her knees, thinking that it was about time Milton showed up. A puff of wind rattled the leaves and blew away the clinging smell of lilacs and was gone. Far up the road toward the canyon the girl heard the clop of a trotting horse. She rose and leaned on the fence, and a frog plumped into the ditch at her feet. The shoes of the approaching horse rang loud on the ledge of bare stone at the edge of her father's pasture, and then the sound died to low puffs in the dust of the trail worn deep by the hay wagons. She looked and listened until the rider came in sight in the lane, turned very deliberately to break a branch from the lilac bush. When she turned again, he was sitting on his horse on the other side of the fence, all dolled up, she noticed, with high-heeled boots, clean Levi's, a belt 3 inches wide, a red silk handkerchief tied around his throat, his hat on the back of his head. His horse had a spray of chokecherry blossom stuck in the cheek strap of the bridle.